I decided to make a video white paper for Vertisan. Yes, I'm still releasing a written white paper, but I wanted to make a video version that is digestible, that's very easy for people to understand, that doesn't go into a crazy amount of technical details. So this is a video presentation of the basic concepts of Vertisan, which is the cryptocurrency that is based upon my new technology, which is called fractal. Do not want to spend a lot of time talking about the past, talking about origin stories or things like that. Satoshi Nakamoto, great, super. Something just being a fact has nothing to do with and no bearing on any merit for my new technology. None whatsoever. But it does provide some basis for understanding how I got here from where things started. I honestly do not care if you think I am or don't think I am. That makes no difference to me whatsoever. The reason I say that, let me put that in context. The new technology, fractal as the back end, Vertisan as one cryptocurrency implementation, that has been the last 12 years of my life. I have spent more than 25,000 hours in the last 12 years creating all of this new technology. So yeah, I dropped off the radar. I did. I haven't communicated. That's true. I have no involvement with Bitcoin or blockchain whatsoever. That's not my thing anymore. What I have done is spent the last 12 years of my life creating something new. There wasn't something necessarily wrong with what was created. It was just merely that it was more of a proof of concept than it was any intention for a truly global scale financial network. Yes, the ideas, the concepts that were introduced have been monumental. That is true. But the architectural implementation left a lot to be desired. So I'm not bashing what was created, not at all. I'm not saying abandon anything that you have interest in now. No. I am not interested in manipulating markets. I am not interested in, I want to focus on the path forward, not what was behind. People say, oh, move some coins. No, that's stupid. Honestly, that's really dumb. People just immediately go to that, but there is no way to validate that. It's kind of silly. All that does is that potentially creates panic in the marketplace. That causes people to worry about somebody having their finger on the button for basically 5% of the supply. That's a terrible idea, to move coins or to provide, oh, I'm going to just prove exactly who I am without a shadow of a doubt. No. Like I said, I don't actually care if you believe me or don't believe me. It just happens to be my life and it happens to be fact. Circling back to where I was before I went off my tangent, after blockchain, after Bitcoin, after 2011, it was clear that a different architecture was needed, different DNA. So I solved for that problem. I created the correct DNA for a global scale financial infrastructure for people to be able to have what was originally intended, the idea of digital money, cash, not just a store of value, but something that people can use on a daily basis. I will provide some small explanation about how blockchain works, only to use it as a purpose of comparison for how fractal works. This is a video white paper. As I said, that is my intention. I don't want to get off on a rant. I don't want to stay consumed by the past. I want to talk about the path forward. Vertisan is a cryptocurrency. It's a digital currency that works without banks or governments. Yes, that sounds exactly like the Bitcoin white paper. It does. But what was intended with what came, we'll call it crypto version 1, has not come to fruition. As I said, architecturally, there were things that needed to be different. Different DNA. The idea for Vertisan is it should be a way for people to be able to buy and sell goods privately amongst themselves, peer-to-peer, without an intermediary, without a bank, without a government, without prying eyes. On the Satoshi side, I am not an anarchist. I am not looking to disrupt governments or upset the Fed or anything else. I simply create. I make tech. I make software. And I solve problems. Yes, I do think that everyone should have their own personal liberties. I think people should have autonomy in their life. I think that people should have the ability to transact goods and services amongst themselves without watchdogs or supervisory individuals or institutions. But that doesn't make me an anarchist. That doesn't make me a revolutionary. No, I'm a capitalist. I'm a businessman. I happen to be able to make software. I make things, I create. That's what I do. As my friend would say, writers write, painters paint, and creators create. And that's what I do. Bitcoin and blockchain. Is it really your perception out there? You know, I'm talking about just people at large, general public. Do you really think some magical entity showed up, dropped off Bitcoin and blockchain, here's your source code, and then disappeared forever, one and done? Oh, I made something, I'm never going to make something again. Honestly, that's kind of ridiculous. Really, if you think about it. Like I said, writers write, painters paint. So it's much more likely that the person who created Bitcoin dropped off the radar did so for a reason. And I can tell you right now, what we have now in Fractal and Vertisan is 12 years worth of work from me. We're talking about the difference between 500 hours total and 25,000 hours and counting on my new tech. There's a reason I've been silent. There's a reason I've been away. I've been creating. And I'm not showing up with some lightweight anything. I'm showing up with an entire financial infrastructure for the world, global scale, something that runs and can process transactions in less than a second all around the world for billions of people at the same time. An infrastructure that can process up to 34 billion transactions simultaneously. Vertisan. We won't call it a replacement for Bitcoin, but if you're trying to wrap your head around the idea of what it is, yes, it's a cryptocurrency. What I call it is cryptocurrency remastered. It's not crypto 1.0. This is entirely new. And that leads to another origin question. Oh, why break your silence? Seriously, I did not want to do that. I was perfectly happy just creating and doing my thing and being anonymous. But after 25,000 hours, what I've created with Fractal, Vertisan, and everything powered by Fractal, it truly is a masterpiece. This is my legacy to the world. I'm excited about it. It's amazing. It's wonderful. But it's massive. Absolutely massive. You know, Bitcoin and blockchain was a little thing. Fractal and Vertisan is a huge thing. I want to be able to come here. I want to be able to explain what it is, how it works, why it's important, how it's your path forward. If you choose to use the technology I created, great. That's wonderful. Congratulations. I think that's fabulous. If you choose not to, also great. You know, it's free will. Do whatever you like. But I'm never going to try to motivate you to use something that I created. I create because I can. I've been blessed with the ability to solve problems other people were not able to solve. It's my responsibility to give back, to be able to use those blessings and those gifts to help other people. So I do. Yeah, there's a little bit of origin story in there. Okay. But this is supposed to be the Vertisan white paper on a level that's digestible by everyone. Not deep tech where I'm talking about how encryption algorithms work or, you know, inner details of matrix mathematics or lattices or anything like that. No, I'm trying to keep it up here at a higher level. If you want that, great, read this stuff that I'm going to write down and distribute. What does Vertisan mean? It is a combination of vertex, which is the highest peak, and artisan. That's me. It's difficult to talk about Vertisan without talking about fractal, without talking about a cryptocase, without talking about vecton encryption, without talking about the lattice, without talking about particles, without talking about The list goes on and on and on and on. As I said, this is 25,000 hours of work for me. I created all of this myself. So with Vertisan, when I created that, I was architecting differently than with Bitcoin or blockchain. That was only solving a very small problem. That was solving for the consensus, being able to have consensus amongst nodes on a network with zero trust. That was what was innovative about Bitcoin and blockchain, the consensus mechanism. So there wasn't a need for governments or third parties in the process, peer-to-peer. This time, this is a much grander vision. I have taken a step back, went back to the drawing board, because as I said, what I created originally did not have the right DNA to be able to accomplish all of my architectural goals. I wanted global scale, meaning it needs to run all the way around the world for all 8 billion people. That's quite a feat. I wanted to architect for something that's going to last for 100+ years. And if you think about it, that's actually quite a challenge. I can step into that another time, but that was something I was architecting for. How to have a system in place that can be upgradable, that can have an architecture that can be flexible, that can last for 100 years. Not just the protection of the assets, but the technology itself, the usability. Will it still run just as fast 100 years from now? Will it still be just as secure? These are all important design considerations. Hyperspeed. I have read in so many books, oh, Satoshi Nakamoto, he did this thing. Oh, but why that? Why did he forget this? I didn't forget anything. But I will say that the solution for the double spend was not a solution, it was a workaround. Processing one transaction or a block approximately every 10 minutes, as done with blockchain, that is not something that is usable for point of sale. That's not usable in people's daily life. Meaning, I'm not going to go to the grocery store, buy milk and eggs, and stand in the checkout line for 10 minutes waiting for transaction settlement. It wasn't architected for that. That required, as I said, different DNA. That required a true solution to the double spend. So hyperspeed was a design requirement for me. I needed to ensure that this would work for people in their daily lives. And I succeeded in that. We're not talking about transaction processing once every 10 minutes. We're talking about 300 milliseconds, a third of a second, or half a second. Regardless of what it is, it's faster than you'll be able to do whatever you're doing in your physical daily life. Another huge one, talking about my architectural design considerations, is it had to work online and offline. Yeah, let me say that again, online and offline. If you're talking about current cryptocurrencies, you need to have a smartphone, you need to have a device, you need to have a computer, you need to have a network, you need to have a lot of things. I'm designing for the 8 billion people of the world, not the people who live in the wealthiest countries that have access to all those devices. Most of the world doesn't have access to those things. And even if they have a phone, they're probably sharing it amongst their family. So when I did my architectural considerations, I wanted it to work offline as well. If you're going to create money, digital money, it has to do everything that money does now. You can go to the store now and take out, whether it's dollars or euros or whatever country that you're in, you can take out paper money and pay completely anonymously. If you can't do that with Vertisan, then I have failed in creating digital money. It's just that simple. So that was a huge design consideration, online and offline. A couple other things that were on my list, but people don't really think about, is self-recovery. What happens if something goes wrong? That was not a design consideration in Crypto 1.0. I can't even tell you what the percentage is. It's a crazy number of how much Bitcoin is lost forever. People send to the wrong address, disappears into nothingness. Those were not design considerations in Crypto 1.0. But I will say self-recovery is critically important. For example, exception handling. What happens when in the source code there's an error that needs to bubble up, that needs to be surfaced, that needs to be addressed? People need to work on it. Otherwise, how do you know if there's something wrong? I will not lament the subject today, but I did a restore on 2 different devices of a wallet. And both of them said, oh yeah, it's 100% synchronized with the network. And they showed a different balance. That did not inspire me. No. Yeah, I know. But that stems less from something being wrong or some sort of nefarious activity. That's more along the lines of self-recovery and being autonomous. There has to be infrastructure in place within the source code, within the application, within the platform that bubbles up errors, bubbles up exceptions, that identifies these things. That was another design consideration for me. It had to be autonomous, meaning no people involved whatsoever. Not a government, not a financial institution, not me. I am not required for Fractal to run. I am not required for Vertisan to be digital money for the people of the world. I do not need to participate in that process. Nobody does. I designed it to be autonomous. And then lastly, and this is probably one of the biggest subjects that falls by the wayside nowadays, self-custody. Simple self-custody for all. Let me say that again. Simple self-custody for all. Meaning the private key that allows you to execute a transaction with Vertisan should be in your control. That was the original design, that was the original intent. That has not manifested itself well over these past years. Now people go to a centralized exchange, which is not centralized, which is not decentralized, I should say. They create an account, and then the exchange has the private keys. You don't even have your own keys. That was not the intention. Yeah, it's a sore point for me. It really is. A sore point, deep frustration, deep sadness, self-custody. People should have the keys to be able to execute transactions. When you buy a car, they give you the keys to the car. You have the key, you put it in the ignition, you go. You don't leave the key with the car. You don't leave the key with some stranger. But that's basically what's happening. If you create an account on a centralized exchange, they have your private keys. You're saying, oh, please submit a transaction on my behalf. But that's not you. That's not you executing it yourself. That's not self-custody. So that was one of the biggest design considerations. But not just self-custody, but simple self-custody. And I think that's where the failing was in the past. We'll just say Crypto 1.0 was too complicated. Too complicated. The average person didn't understand it. Couldn't use it. That's a failing. I'm sorry. But 12 years later, after 25,000 hours, we have all that fixed. It should be simple. It should be simple for everybody to use. In summary, what was I architecting for? Global scale. Something that's going to last for 100 years. Hyperspeed. Online and offline. Self-recovery. Completely autonomous. And simple self-custody for all. That is what I was architecting for with Fractal. That is what I was architecting for with Vertisan. I use those terms interchangeably in very much the same way that when people talk about Bitcoin, they're talking about Bitcoin and blockchain. Blockchain is the engine. Bitcoin is the currency powered by the engine. It is impossible to wrap everything into one. Vertisan is the currency. That's the medium of exchange. That's a store of value. That's here. The engine that makes it all work is Fractal. But there's other pieces. There's the cryptocase. Why it's important that the wallet system be part of the data and part of the network itself, not as an independent item. There's also vector encryption. So there's many, many pieces it's impossible to talk about one without talking about the others. I like to talk about the pillars for Vertisan. As I said, Vertisan is digital money that can be used peer-to-peer amongst people without governments or financial institutions in the middle, with privacy. So people can buy goods or services, conduct their own business amongst themselves. So these pillars are financial liberty, utility, longevity, quantum resistance, consensus, threat protection, accountability, and governance. Sounds like a lot. It is a lot. I'll start at the top. Financial liberty. I'm not against government. Not at all. There is a way for Vertisan, Fractal, everything powered by Vertisan, to cohabitate with existing fiat currencies. Fiat currencies from governments experience inflation, a lot of inflation. That's another reason why I have decided to come forward and make some videos to explain some aspects that people maybe aren't necessarily paying attention to, but are important. Inflation is one of those huge things. Inflation is when the value of what you have earned is worth less and less, because a government, whatever country you're in, keeps printing money without the backing behind it. If you increase the supply without increasing the value of what's behind the supply, it's worth less. And that's critically important when people are saving. The idea of being able to save for your retirement. If you're trying to fill a strainer all the time, you're never going to be able to retire. And that's what happens, unfortunately, in this day and age, no matter what country you live in. You earn money, it's this pile, and you're trying to save it so that when you get older, you'll have that. But as inflation happens, your buying power with that pile becomes less and less and less. I mean, just in the United States alone, the cost of food has gone up 25% or more just in these last few years. It's crazy. Inflation is a killer. So if I'm designing a financial infrastructure, a monetary system, money for the common man, for all the hardworking people of the world, it needs to be free from inflation. So one of the greatest economic minds in history, and this is probably the Bible here, The Theory of Money and Credit, Ludwig von Mises. This is considered by many to be the Bible of economics. So I'd like to read something from this book. This is a synthesis of several lectures from Ludwig von Mises. The topic that I've highlighted is about the idea of global money, of one monetary system for the world. And of course, the difficulty with that is you have governments all around the world. It is impossible to have a money that is only government made by the world government, if it is not once and for all limited in its quantity. One thing that was done right in Crypto 1.0 is having a fixed supply. Having a fixed supply, a fixed quantity, means you will not have inflation. But of course, the difficulty with that is you can't allow individuals to be able to corrupt that. Source code that is written and maintained by human beings is vulnerable to corruption. Meaning, if somebody decided to change the supply, the total quantity, they just have to change a variable in the source code, and guess what? We made some more. That is unacceptable for my new architecture. And I'll talk about that. That has to do with the Sovereign Entity Protocol and establishing the boundaries and the constraints and having that hard-baked into the data itself. So it is not subjective, meaning a software developer, a programmer, a government, a financial institution, whoever it is, cannot arbitrarily decide, I am going to change the supply, let's increase it. That produces inflation. And the end result, what you have is worth less and less and less. That is contrary to what I believe in and what I'm sure you believe in as well. We must realize that money can operate. It can work only if we have a system in which the government is prevented from manipulating the value of money. We need not ask whether it's better to have a money with a higher or lower purchasing power per unit. What we must realize is that we ought not to have a system of money in which the value of the monetary unit is in the hands of the government, so that the government can manipulate the money market in the way it wants to. Let me translate that for you a little bit. That means there can't be a government or financial institution that has the ability to affect the supply, to be able to change how much is in circulation, because that results in inflation. That means what you earn is worth less. This is the Vertisan Whitepaper. Is there a need for digital money? I believe yes. Is there a basis in fact, not from me, but from scholars regarding the value and the need of money that is free from inflation? I say yes. It is well documented. So it's not coming from me. That's not my opinion. That's the opinion of people who are much, much more scholarly than me when it comes to economics. It's noted that, yes, there is a value and there is a need for world money. Whether that is a reserve currency for existing fiat currencies out there, like I said, I'm not trying to disrupt governments, but they could all use a reserve currency. They could use a currency that is free from inflation. That is not simply a store of value. That's what we're facing a lot of the times with what we'll call crypto 1.0. It's no longer a medium of exchange, meaning I don't use it to transact in my daily life. I'm not going to once again, go to the store to buy something, goods and services. That was the idea. The idea was to be able to buy goods and services, do it privately, and do it quickly and easily. That's not what is happening now. Now it's just simply a store of value. I have something, it's free from inflation, I'm going to hedge against inflation and hold on to that, and it keeps going up and up and up in value. Great, but that doesn't help you in your daily life. Vertisan is for your daily life. Vertisan is a medium of exchange. Vertisan is a currency that has no borders, no boundaries. It can be anywhere in the world and all across the world at one time. Is it validated? Is it wanted? Yes, it is. There is a use case that is well documented for a global money. While I'm on the subject of economics and the idea of digital money, in the early 1900s, when that book was written, there was no concept of a computer. There was no concept of cryptography. There was no concept that value could be provided by the integrity of the data itself. When he created his regression theorem, and saying for something to survive, to be valued as money, you need some sort of stability behind it. What gives Vertisan stability is the network itself, is the integrity of fractal, the impenetrability, the fact that it's going to work for 100 plus years, never going to experience inflation. As I said, in the early 1900s, that wasn't even a concept. But it's still digital money, whether that is blockchain-based or fractal-based, still holds true in terms of the regression theorem. The stability is created by the network itself, by the impenetrability of the data. I would argue that even more so than gold or other precious metals. If you talk about edge cases, thought experiments, what if all of a sudden someone discovers a new gold mine? And it's like $3, $4, $5 trillion worth of gold. We've now injected more gold into the marketplace, which means you have diluted the supply. Price goes down because you now have more of it. With fractal and with Vertisan, it's never going to happen. So it's my own personal opinion, but I argue that the integrity from a digital asset perspective has more stability and more long-term value than precious metals. So circling back, Vertisan provides financial liberty. It's anonymous, autonomous. And it allows for the restoration of people's financial liberties. It also protects against inflation. There is no inflation, and there never will be. Whatever you earn and whatever you hold in terms of monetary asset as Vertisan is always going to be worth that value. It is impossible to be corrupted by governments or institutions, even by me. I designed, as I talked about the architecture points, I designed for that. It is not vulnerable to people's whims or programmers. It has to be fixed. It has to be a supply that can never be changed, no matter what. That is Vertisan. Next pillar is utility. I laugh because that's an easy one. Everything that is Crypto 1.0 has no utility. Too complicated, too difficult to use in daily life, and there's only one that really is the original that has any value. And you can see that from the current market price. But the value it's providing is not day-to-day utility. The value it's providing is a store of value, a hedge against inflation. How does Vertisan provide utility? It can be used in day-to-day life. That could be using a card, which is directly spending the Vertisan that's in your wallet that has a built-in fingerprint scanner. This does not require a phone. This does not require a network. This requires your fingerprint. That's it. So for the majority of the world, this works great. There are other options for people that do have smartphones and other devices. Yes, you can have a FIDO device to provide two-factor authentication. There are lots of other ways to do that. Vertisan solves for all those things when it comes to utility. Being able to use it in day-to-day life, that's the biggest utility of all. Vertisan is the only digital money, cryptocurrency, or digital asset of any kind on the planet that can be used in your day-to-day life. Other utility is borderless. You don't have to convert from one currency to another, be charged fees, be able to lose monetary value because you want to change it into something else. That's utility. But the greatest value proposition is the ability to use it day to day. Can I go to the store? Can I buy my groceries? Can I pay? Can I leave? Transaction fees. Oh, that is a hot topic for me. The original idea, the original intent was peer-to-peer, simple, self-custody, cheap, inexpensive. That is not what's happening. The idea that you don't know how much the transaction fee is going to cost until after you purchase something, that's asinine, honestly. It really is. Imagine if you go to the store like, oh, hey, I like that rug. That's really nice. I think I'll buy that. But you don't know how much it costs until after you've paid for it. That's crazy. I mean, but that's what we're dealing with. Not anymore. With Vertisan and Fractal, everything powered by Fractal, every transaction is the equivalent of 10 cents. 10 cents. It's a fixed amount. It never changes. 20 years from now, it's still going to be 10 cents, but it's timestamp pegged. So unfortunately, as whether it's the dollar or the euro or whatever currency experiences inflation year after year, yes, it will cost you more of those units to get one dark energy unit, but to process a transaction powered by Fractal is always one energy unit, just one. And as of January 1st, 2025, that's equivalent to 10 cents. How did I come up with that number? There have been thousands of hive workers, neurons, we'll get to that have been simulating transactions. And that data has been carefully studied for more than 2 years. So I know exactly how much computing power it takes to process a transaction. We have done that in the cloud. I've done that on-premise. I've done that with my own devices. 10 cents is the number that allows for all the individuals who were involved in that process, all the hive workers, to be able to generate income, make a profit. Everyone wants. When I say we, I'm talking about all the people of the world. We want to have the opportunity to participate in the process. This is an example of a hive worker, a neuron that can process transactions for fractal. This will cost you less than $200. And you combine that with a hive worker license, which is a card with a chip that says this is approved to process transactions for fractal. You put those together, hey, put this on your bookshelf, put this in your child's bedroom. You're going to receive a predictable workload. It's not like mining. Fractal will process 10 million transactions for roughly the cost of a penny in electricity. Once again, it's been running for years. 10 million transactions for the cost of a penny in electricity. And these little guys can do the work. Full cryptography, everything you need, everything to ensure that your money, your digital assets, your digital money is safe for 100 years. Get a simple computing device and a hive worker license. Great. You now have an income stream. Maybe that pays for your child's college education. Maybe that just provides extra money for you. Maybe it makes your car payment for you. Maybe it pays for your internet, your phone, and whatever. The point is, it's not supposed to be mining conglomerates and large companies. The process of processing transactions should be in the hands of the people. And that provides decentralization as well. But you probably don't care about that as much as, hey, you could earn some extra money just putting this on your shelf. The biggest utility for Vertisan, use it in your day-to-day life. It will process a transaction in less than a second. That means it's viable for retail, is viable for point of sale, and every transaction costs 10 cents, equivalent. Imagine going to a restaurant. Let's say that you go out to eat, you bring your family. The bill at the restaurant is, let's just say, $100 or 100 euros. Okay? Visa, MasterCard, all your credit card providers, charging roughly 3%. Maybe more, maybe less, whatever. But of a $100 or 100 euro bill, you're looking at, the restaurant is looking at $3 in fees to be able to take your card, swipe it, and collect the money for your meal. I postulate, would the restaurant be happy instead of taking that to allow you to pay with Vertisan, and their fee is only 10 cents? $3 on 100 or 10 cents no matter what the amount. I would say that I think the odds are in favor of restaurants, merchants, and everyone else. And yes, we would happily take Vertisan because it's impenetrable, it's secure. It is a medium of exchange as well as a store of value. It works today, it'll work 100 years from now. It's always going to run just as fast. I don't need any special equipment, no special hardware. There are no obstacles. That is the ultimate when it comes to utility. This is money. Moving on to the next pillar, longevity. If I'm going to create a monetary system, if I'm going to create money, it has to do what money does now. It can't be a subset of features and say, it's not money. Everything crypto now is not money. Vertisan is money. Let me explain why. If I have let's say a US $5 bill that's 100 years old, I can go to the store, take a drink off the shelf, go to the register, put the drink down, give them my $5, even though it's a 100-year-old $5 bill, they will take that, give me change, and I walk out the door. It doesn't matter if that $5 bill was made 100 years ago or just made last year. It's irrelevant. The transaction works exactly the same, runs just as fast, has the same result. So if you're going to make, and if I was going to make money as an option for people, it has to do what money does now. That's the 100-year solution. With Fractal, which is the engine that powers Vertisan, it is. It is a plug-in architecture. It is upgradable when it comes to the encryption protocols and vector encryption. But the idea is, if you're going to make something that is a financial product, financial infrastructure, digital asset, money, whatever you want to label it, whatever you want to call it, whatever utility you want to have for it in the marketplace, for all the people of the world, It must do what money does now. Vertisan, anything powered by fractal, will run just as fast 100 years from now, will be just as secure. Your digital assets will be safe. They won't be lost. The next pillar, quantum resistance. Fractal was already designed for years and years and years for quantum resistance. There's vector encryption, which uses matrix-based algorithms. There's the particle, which I will show you. There's the consensus protocol, Venom, digital DNA, the Higgs, plug-in architecture, and the lattice. There are multiple things that give fractal quantum resistance. Just the underlying infrastructure, there's the signing process, how to sign a transaction. Those signing keys with fractal are done in using quantum resistant algorithms, quantum resistant protocols, whether that's LMS, XMSS, other implementations for fractal by Vecton. It has been planned for, it has been accounted for. Fractal is quantum resistant. Long gone are the days of, hey, everything is SHA-256, and great, as soon as SHA-256 is compromised, everything goes to a value of 0, because you can't rely upon the integrity of the data. A fractal, the particles within the lattice, can be upgraded in terms of the encryption algorithms, the hashing methods, mutable, immutable data. Next, I'm going to talk about consensus, the consensus algorithm, the solution to the double spend, the solution to the Byzantine generals problem. The consensus protocol is called Venom. Before I get to that, we'll take a step backwards and talk about blockchain. When it comes to cryptocurrency, using Bitcoin as an example, it's just a transaction log. It says, this is the ledger of this went there, that went there, this went there, that went there, so on and so forth. That record of those transactions is just data. And that data is put into this block. And that block is written to a hard drive out there. This is our first block. We call this the Genesis block because this is the beginning. There wasn't anything that came before. Do a bunch of transactions. Awesome. This block is written to the hard drive. After that, this block is 1 megabyte. So the data that's bigger than that needs to go in the next block. Cool. So we have a new block, and we put those new transactions in there. But how do you ensure that this information can never be changed? That's the big value of blockchain, is it's immutable. The data can't be changed. Here's how it does that. You take the information that's in this block, and you execute a hash on it. All that means is take all this data and give me 32 bytes or 32 characters, a string of characters that is a unique value representation of that. That little guy. This is our 32 characters. Those 32 characters get put into the next block. So that block has the transactions that happened and the hash, or 32 characters representing this block. That's all. This is written to the drive. Now we move on to our next block. I have more transactions, 1 megabyte. Cool. To ensure that nothing gets changed, what is the hash, 32 characters of this block, which now has these transactions and those 32 characters from the block before it. It then makes, here's your 32 characters again. Put that in our new block. Yellow, yellow, orange, orange. Great. In our next block, we have more transactions. And I need to ensure that that is never changed, so I do execute a hash of this block with that. Then I get 32 characters again. And it goes on and on and on. This is sequential. It can do this block, then that block, then this one, then that. It can do one thing at a time. And it goes in order. Doesn't matter if there's 1 million miners out there, or 1,000 miners, or just one. It's always one block at a time. Nothing new can happen. It's synchronous. So that just keeps happening again and again, and the chain gets longer and longer as we, boop, hey, here's my 32 characters, on, and then this will go, this is the hash of that, and then go in the next block. That's it. That's blockchain. It is not nearly as complicated as all those people want you to believe. It's very simple. If I were to change these values here, the hash of this block, this little blue guy here, is not going to be the same, because just changing even one character in your data gives a totally different 32-character hash or string of characters. So you can't change anything without this being invalid. That's how the data is immutable. That's how blockchain works. That's it. I've been waiting a decade to be able to just easily show people. It's not complicated. It's simple. Why do I bring that up now? Why does it matter? Because Vertisan is powered by fractal. Fractal's a whole different beast. These are particles. Particles are the fundamental building block of fractal. Just like in the physical universe, the fundamental building block in the universe, things like electrons, neutrons, protons, those are the fundamental building blocks. They come together to make atoms. Atoms make molecules, molecules, so on and so forth. The same holds true with fractal. Whether you call it the Vertisan particle or Satoshi's particle, I don't care what you call it. This is the particle. This is a truncated rhombus dodecahedron. There are 12 hexagons, 6 squares. This is what provides the immutability of data and a 100-year solution. This is impenetrable. This will give you protection from hackers, scammers, everyone. This will keep your monetary value safe, whether that's a digital asset or digital money or cryptocurrency. Those particles, as I said, the fundamental building block, they are connected together on something called inacons, I-N-A-C-C-O-N. That's these little cubes. Those little cubes are a dioptic substrate, which is a fancy way of saying they regulate and monitor the ability to traverse the data lattice, or like a bridge going over the ocean in a bay. One path in, one path out. They're separate, they're unique. Inacon allows determination of, can I get to this particle? Can I not get to this particle? Can I get to another particle from this particle? It's all about traversal. So we saw blockchain, one block at a time. Cool. With fractal, it builds a lattice that technically exists in 7 dimensions, but I'm going to do a demonstration that is in 3-dimensional space, so you can see. Here's our particle. Adding another particle is connected by an inacon. See here? So if we want to get from this particle to that particle, this inacon is regulating the traffic, regulating the flow. And here's another particle. And it is building a lattice of particles. And that goes in all directions. And it just keeps going and going and going. Blockchain, one block at a time. Sequential. Fractal. Truncated rhombus dodecahedron, the particle. Builds a lattice that exists in 7 dimensions. This is a 3-dimensional model of it. This can be accessed from any direction at any time, asynchronously, multiple at the same time. Another thing about these particles is pretty amazing. So, as I said, here's the particles. 12 hexagons. The inacons are little cubes. Inside the particle is digital DNA. That's right, digital DNA and the payload. The payload in a block is just a list of transactions. Money went from here to here, here to here, here to here. Particle of the payload can be anything, any data. And the particles are not fixed in size either. The particle can be big or small. This is the payload and the digital DNA combined together. The payload is in red. I did that because it's encrypted, fully encrypted. That payload can be separated from the DNA. You can have mutable, immutable data. For example, in this lattice, every one of those particles has a payload which is encrypted, and the DNA. And the DNA is representative of the particle all the neighbors around it. The payload itself is a full signature that allows for recreation, self-recovery. That was one of my design considerations. What happens if there's damage to the fractal? What happens if it gets blocked? What happens if there's bad actors? What happens? What happens? Fractal can reconstitute itself. It can reconstruct particles. It can quarantine particles, kill them off, recreate them, because it has the DNA of the particle and the payload in every one. 100-year solution, that's provided and facilitated by the ability to be able to have new encryption protocols. Maybe a new quantum proof algorithm. Awesome. What happens is the payload is removed from the particle. It is re-encrypted with a new one, new algorithm. A new particle is created. And because that new particle is in a different place in the lattice, and you now have a new encryption algorithm for the payload, the DNA is going to change. But that gets combined together. Now you have a newly encrypted payload. It's still the same data, but it's newly encrypted in a different format with a new DNA signature, which goes into a new particle, which then gets fused and encapsulated, and then gets attached to the lattice. Mutable, immutable data, 100-year solution. The ability to upgrade your data, upgrade the software, upgrade the network, upgrade the protocols. 100-year solution. I'm very, very proud of this. This was many, many years of work to make this a reality. Blockchain, fractal. 34 billion transactions at the same time, fully asynchronous. Transactions fully settle in less than a second. Digital DNA, upgradable encryption, and utility. You can use it every day of the week. So what do people really care about? They care about the utility. People. Can I go buy milk with it? Yes, I can. Can I walk out the door in less than a second? Yes, I can. Is the transaction fee 10 cents and always will be? Yes, it is. Is my money protected? Yes. Is there any inflation? No. Financial liberty, utility. This is what people care about. Tech, and threat protection. I'll cover this really briefly because this is a whole subject for another white paper, another video, the Venom protocol. That is the consensus algorithm that is used by Fractal. That is what processes transactions, ensures against bad actors, ensures the integrity of your data. Fractal itself was given the name Fractal because it's loosely derived from the branch of mathematics of fractals. The definition of a fractal is a infinitely repeating self-similar pattern, meaning no matter how much you zoom in, you're always going to see the same shape, the same pattern again and again, the particle. It doesn't matter how deep you go, you're always going to get the same thing. Fractal is made from curves. Those curves have segments, not blockchain, no. A segment is more like a data page. This is the persistence stack. You have the particle lattice. Under that, you have the neural fabric. Fractal is a neural network. Every neuron on that network has a role, has a responsibility, and does one or multiple jobs. A Hive worker processing transactions, that's a neuron. Your smartphone, if it's an edge worker, that's a neuron. There are orchestrators, validators, observers, candidates, vetted candidates. There's lots of different types of neurons. That all goes into the neural fabric. Below that, we have a hardware abstraction, and then finally, we have physical devices. So these particles, just like everything else, ultimately ends up on a hard drive. But on a logical level, Fractal is a neural network that is made from curves. Each one of those curves is managed by a neural compute unit, affectionately known as a hive. Hives and hive workers. This is a 19 neuron hive. This is a 7-neuron hive. That's the configuration of what it looks like. As I said, this is not a deep dive technical video. It's supposed to be the white paper for everybody. This is a mediator in the middle, 6 neurons around it. They work together to process the transactions. Ooh, I go to the store, I buy some eggs, boom, they're doing the work. That gets written to a curve, goes into the particle lattice, hardware abstraction, ends up in devices. This is a 19-neuron hive. A neuron is a physical device, once again. Might be your computer, might be your laptop, might be one of these guys, might be a big powerful computer. Could be lots of different things. It's a computing device. This is a 19-neuron hive. Once again, just like this one, we have a mediator in the center, wandering around the outside, just like this one, which is 6 more neurons, and then another ring around that, which is 12 more, for a total of 19. This configuration is normal when you have lower power computing devices. Not energy power, but computing power. Those typically end up in a 19-neuron hive, and it takes more individuals to come to consensus than it does for a 7-neuron hive, but it provides the ability for those transactions to still happen quickly, still be secure, still be validated, and still be walking out the door at the grocery store in record time. This is a candidate over here. A new hive worker, even though they need a hive worker license, without that chip, it doesn't work. Just because you have the card, just because you have a chip, doesn't mean, oh great, join the network and process transactions, maybe you're a bad actor. It goes through a candidate process first. This candidate is basically piggybacking this active hive and is building a reputation score, which is a base 32 value. As it builds a reputation score, it eventually becomes vetted. When the network says, okay, it appears that you come up with the right answer all the time. It appears that everything is working correctly, and you should be trusted to a degree to join a hive and process actual transactions. One thing that is not static about the hives is the hive members, the neurons. This is a logical role. Those individual devices, like I said, whether it's your laptop, big computer, or one of these little guys, is assuming that role in that hive. But they get tapped out. Hey, you've been doing this long enough, tap, tap, time to get out. This role is replaced by a different physical device. No physical device is a member of a hive for a long period of time. That helps to ensure that bad actors can't infiltrate the network and cause problems. It will be part of the 200+ hour series. But basically, that's a hive, that's a hive. Each curve has an authoritative hive that is processing transactions that happen there. The curve reaches a mass, it causes it to fracture, and a new curve is created, and this one continues. A new authoritative hive, neural compute unit, is assigned to the new curve, and off it goes. That process repeats. Hence the name fractal. No matter how many dimensions you create and how many curves, you're always going to see the same thing. Infinitely repeating self-similar value. Again and again and again. The Venom protocol prevents the double spend. It is a fix. It is not a workaround. I will cover that in much deeper detail outside of the Vertisan white paper, but that is the consensus protocol. Threat protection, I will cover that briefly. Threat protection comes from quantum resistance, but it also comes from a natural ability just by the structure of fractal, how it works, the neural compute unit, the hives, the neurons. It is not susceptible to a typical attack, such as a Sybil attack or other vulnerabilities. Furthermore, it uses the feed-forward vector routing protocol, FFVRP. It obfuscates the neurons on the network. They are anonymous in their existence and their participation, which means they are not a target for attack because nobody knows that they exist in the first place. FFVRP, feed-forward vector routing protocol. Accountability, anti-fraud. That was something that was not addressed in Crypto 1.0. There was no fraud reversal protection. What happens if you sent money to somebody and that was fraudulent? Ooh, there's no way to get it back. Once you send it, oh, it's gone forever. Fractal uses ring contracts, not a smart contract, nothing like that. A ring contract represents a ring with participants on that ring. Could be just 2 people, 2 individuals, could be 1 million. It's irrelevant. One type of ring contract, covered in another video, is a certified send. Another is send with rollback. Yeah, I'll explain that one. Send with rollback. The idea is I'm going to send money from me to you. When I do that, if I choose send with rollback, I can assign a length of time, arbitrary to me. Maybe I say it's a day, maybe I say it's an hour, maybe I say it's a week. And when I make that send, it doesn't go directly into the wallet of the recipient. It goes into an escrow wallet, which is attached to the wallet of the recipient. Once I have acknowledged that I have received whatever goods, services, or otherwise that satisfy whatever agreement the two of us have privately, I can then say, great, release those monies from the escrow into their wallet. If it turns out something was fraudulent, great, I can execute the rollback. Say, do not commit, roll it back, send it back to me. Now the recipient, when the transaction executes in the first place, they have received the monetary value. It is in an escrow attached to their wallet, but they can't take it yet, but they have it. So they know, yes, I have received it, it's there, it's valid, the money is real, cool, but they need to do their part in that transaction, whatever transaction that is that these parties have. So that the sender can say, great, release the funds. Send with rollback. So that was something that was not designed into Crypto 1.0. There was no fraud reversal protection. Fractal has fraud reversal protection and many, many other things that are also pretty awesome. Once again, more videos, more content, 200 plus hours. Last thing I'm going to cover quickly, governance. Fractal is autonomous, 100%. It doesn't require humans to operate. It can't be turned off. It can't be shut down, not by me or anyone else. It's on. It's always going to be on. It's always going to be running. You would literally need to turn off the internet on the entire planet to turn off Fractal, and thereby Vertisan. So when it comes to governments, Vertisan is not susceptible to influence by governments, financial institutions, or any human being or collection of human beings. It is autonomous, self-sustaining, and self-maintaining, even to the standpoint of the lattice of particles with the digital DNA. If something happens and this lattice is destroyed and broken apart, the DNA of the particles knows how to reconstitute from just individual particles themselves back to the state of where things were. You cannot turn off Fractal. So from a governance perspective, it's impenetrable. So the end result, after you look at financial liberty, utility, longevity, quantum resistance, consensus, threat protection, accountability, and governance, Vertisan is the safest, most secure money that has ever existed on the face of the planet. And you can use it in your daily life because it's a very simple self-custody, whether you're using fingerprints on a card or smartphone or device. Self-custody, simple, easy to use. It is the safest, most secure money ever created. As you can see, I have a lot to say. There will be many other videos. Thank you for listening to this. Sorry if I'm a bit long-winded. I am excited about it. As I said, it's been 12 years of my life, 25,000 hours and counting. I have wonders to show you. Truly amazing things. It's all very exciting. It's my gift to you and to the world, my gift to humanity. Thank you for watching.